Good evening, all. Welcome you to the Canyon Lake Finance Workshop. And I welcome a good group of folks here tonight, and hopefully there's some folks at home that want to participate in the meeting. At this point, I'll ask everybody to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, it's great to see a crowd in the audience. I'll call this a crowd compared to other meetings. This is great.
Actually, it is.
And I appreciate you coming out. Brian, I'm glad you made it. I know Brian had a tight schedule and was questionable, but I'm glad he's here. So with that, we'll get right into the budget discussion, and I'll turn the meeting over to Susan Dawood, who is our controller.
Good evening. Welcome to the budget workshop for this year. It's been an entire year since we've done this, so I hope you're all ready to go through it again. I'm going to do a very, very brief overview of this year's budget, and then the president will open the floor for discussion. The purpose of this workshop is to review the budget that's being presented, how it was prepared, and open the floor, as I said, for any possible suggestions or considerations that the board may want to make for changes to this year's budget. The first thing I'd like to do, and I'm very pleased to introduce to you the Finance Committee members. Joe Washley is sitting at the table, and he's the chairperson. We have Dudley Thompson, Greg Doherty, Ed Duziak, Claude Bouchon. Renee Griffiths is our board liaison. Barry Talbot, Greg Klugian, did I say that right? I hope so. And Bruce Busser. The overview of the budget process goes something like this. It's a rather lengthy process. It actually starts the summer before we prepare the budget in January. In the summer of 2021, we had 3 meetings with the Finance Committee. 2 of those meetings went over the amenity rate schedule that we wanted to present or had any points of discussion on. One of those meetings was in particular about the reserve balances, the new reserve study that was just prepared in 2021. And so those numbers got reviewed early on. Then later, a budget template was provided to the managers of the departments at the POA. We had a significant, what I think was an improvement this year in the process, because we were able to put the budget file, which is an Excel format, on the web, essentially. And each manager and the general manager was able to input their numbers directly onto the budget worksheet. And that's in contrast to having to manage data back and forth through the finance department. So the managers were in complete control of their budgets this year. And they were able to make the changes that they were presenting to the general manager later in December. The general manager reviewed the budgets and approved each manager's budget. The controller provided a few standard items. The controller provided a payroll tax calculation, not the salaries, that was not submitted by the controller, but just estimated the payroll taxes. Also, the workers' comp calculation was filled out by the controller. A bad debt reserve estimate was provided. I entered the liability insurance premiums and also the lake lease which is a large portion of our budget. The Finance Committee was able to meet with each manager, in January to review all of the numbers that the managers had prepared. They came back as a group and we met for 2 days, reviewed all of the numbers, asked further questions, analyzed, crunched further numbers, and came up with a presentation at the end of the meeting. The final version is being presented to the board, and the board will vote and approve a final budget on March 1st, just a few weeks away. Just some budget impacts for this year to be aware of. I think everybody's aware of the tight labor market right now. This number I just checked is actually closer to 10%. We have a higher payroll cost this year, and that's due to the tight labor market. Our lake lease cost increased at the maximum rate on the budget of 4% per our contract. Another big contract that we have is Allied Security, and it's hitting a year in which that particular contract has a very high increase, and it's projected to be 6%, and it actually kicks in next month. The COVID impact is still out there, I believe, on and off, employees out sick, etc. But the budget was to be prepared by the managers without that consideration, and they were attempted to make the budget as normal as possible. One really big ticket item, and it is a positive item for this year's budget, is that we did have a surplus last year. We came in at an under budget situation on the P&L of $371,000. That's being proposed to pull forward into this year's calculation for the annual assessment, and that will reduce the assessment significantly. Just a brief overview for those of you that are interested. This is the lake lease history and the increases each year. The lake lease was renegotiated in 2016, 2017, and those increases have gone, and they are based on the CPI of Los Angeles County each year. It went from 2.5, 3.9, 3.3, 1.7, and now we're hitting the maximum on the contract for the lake lease of 4% in our projection for next year. And the lake lease is it's over $1.5 million for total cost, for the annual cost, by the way. This is an overview of all of the departments. And this screen is useful because it compares the prior year budget, which is over on the left-hand side, to the current budget, which is in the middle. The budget this year is being proposed for the operating portion only of $12,800,401. That represents an increase in the overall budget, if you do the math, of 3.5% from last year to this year. And remember, this is just operating. This doesn't include the reserve. That would be an increase of $89, almost $90 per year for the annual assessment based on the operating budget. A lot of people are interested in the history of the annual dues. And this slide shows you how it's gone from 2012-13 each year. It started at $2,748. This year in 21-22, it's $3,516, which represents $293 a month. And you can compare that to what I'm going to show you in the worksheet. So now I'm going to move to the worksheet, and Joe will open the floor for commentary and discussion. But I just wanted to remind you that the board will approve the budget, whatever budget they decide on March 1st. And the POA will have printed or electronic copies to all the members by the end of March 31st, as per Davis Sterling.
Thank you, Susan. And I want to thank you and the Finance Committee for all the work that you've put into this project. It's a daunting project that I know you guys have all put in a tremendous amount of time and effort. And these aren't numbers that were just drawn out of the sky. They were analyzed and calculated and come up with good, solid numbers, and we appreciate that. A little bit of business before we go any further. I failed to ask for roll call, so if we can conduct that, and then we'll be back on track.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. Can I do verification of quorum? Director Cook? Director Bach? Director Griffiths? Director Bellingham? President Commission?
Here.
Hearing 5, quorum met.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, as you can imagine, there's a tremendous amount of data, and I trust there is going to be some questions. I want to let the homeowners know that they are welcome to speak and share their thoughts. So we will get to them as well. But right now, I'm going to ask the board if there's any questions or any modifications or thoughts that they want to present to the Finance Committee and Susan.
Yeah, I'd like to see that capital money go to at least $1 million.
Okay. Was there some basis on that? I understand and I don't disagree. I just thought maybe the members might want to hear some support on that.
Yes. When you look at the pump track at $2.2 million, and by the way, I did support that all the way through, it's taken an awful lot of capital money that other projects that we cannot do. And to go another 300,000 is not going to cost the homeowners that much. And I believe it's in our best interest to continue to make this the best community that it can be through our capital improvements.
Okay. Any comments on that?
To that, I would only, for me, I would lean against that. We should have, assuming the Sierra Park North does take the full 2.2 million, after everything else, we should have about 300,000 left of what's been obligated. So if we move that additional 700,000 into CIP, we should have $1 million in that fund, which should be more than enough for some of the main projects that I know have been in the works and there's a desire to be completed. If we were going to increase funds to any of the reserves, I would favor road reserve for the reason it's just going to cost a lot more than what it is. And until we know what that, if there is money from the lawsuit that's still pending, we might have to make some more adjustments later on. And then of course, our repair and replacement, while we're in good shape and I'm fine with the number right now, there's always things being added as we continue with these capital improvement projects. We have to add them to the repair and replacement, and that would just help along there if we were going to put any additional funding in.
What was the 300,000 that you said? You made a comment about 300,000 plus.
So looking at how much is in the capital improvement now and what we are fully obligated to spend, so we've already approved in spending, we would have about 300,000 left. And then I know some of the things that have been on the docket for a while, which is the patio expansion. And I know this board fully agrees with that, but it has not been approved. And that would certainly be, I think we all agree at this time that that money would be earmarked for that. So we'd still have $700,000 left from the new funding that could be used for some of the additional projects that are being explored, like the pickleball courts. I'm hoping wouldn't cost more than 300,000. And then that leaves, another 400,000 left for other projects. There's always little things, important, but little things that pop up that operations needs to take care of, or, simple and good, the flagpoles. We want to make sure that we have money when those things arise. And then I just got a nod from Joe.
So basically you have 400,000. If you do the pickleball courts, that 700 gets diminished. $400,000 is not a lot of money.
I understand that because there's been a lot of money spent recently, but it's just a matter of being a little bit more conservative in our spending of the capital improvement fund for this year, possibly next year. It depends on what's going to happen with the road reserves and how much more needs to be funded into that.
So what's the situation with the pump track? Is it fully funded at this point?
The what?
It is fully
The money's
funded.
there. The money's there.
It is fully funded.
So you do have that 2.2 million already taken out, correct? Okay,
Correct.
thanks.
It's there.
And
Joe Washley, the president of the Finance Committee. Go ahead, Joe.
Now I don't do. Usually people can hear me anyway, but anyway, after, we've already spent 558,000, we've already paid of that 2.2 million. Now, if you subtract that, we write this at the end of December in our reserved account for the CIP, there was 1,874,000. And that's after we had already spent the 558. So if nothing else happened, that would take it down to 232,000. However, the reserve accounts, like we put $1 million in last year, we didn't just dump $1 million at one time. We put 1/12 of that, which is 83,333 in every month. So for the months of January, February, March, and April, we're putting another 83,3 in. So that brings another 333,300 and something. So we're going to have 565,737, excluding any other new things that we do in the next 4 months, or the next 3 months now. And it'll be over 500,000 in there. And then you throw another 700 in there, you've got $1.2 million to do some of these other projects. Last year, the reason we were thinking more in the road reserve is last year, we wanted to put 2 million in, and the board, because it was going to raise so high the dues again, they made a decision to cut it to 1.5 million. So which was cutting it very thin, as Eric will tell you. So that's why we went for the 2 million. And if we have the increase that we want in here, we'll have another 216,000 besides the 2 million to put in the road reserve. So that's just so we get the facts, on what it is. So that's where we're coming from.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead, Brian.
Being newer to this here, where does that come from, Jim, for tonight? Like the addition, if we add capital improvement budget, right? Is that what we're doing? 300, where does it come from?
Yeah,
I'm
it
asking-
would come from the dues. If we increase the allocation for any of the reserve accounts, then it would just add to the dues. Currently, the dues on this budget are scheduled for $303 a month, which is a $10 increase.
Joe.
$9, excuse me, $9 increase over last year. And with that, it would cover those reserve items. I'm having difficulty reading that. Well, that's just the operating budget.
So the capital improvement doesn't come from an established reserve or something like that.
It is.
It is an established reserve. It is. And-
But in order to do it,
And
you
we
have a-
decide each year
right,
how much is going to go in there.
But it could increase dues even further. Is that what
Oh,
you're
yeah.
saying?
Oh, I mean, it impacts the dues directly.
Right, okay.
So, but on the other hand, we have our fiduciary responsibility to look at the projects that are ahead, prioritize them, and determine as best we can, the cost analysis and how we're going to pay for them if we're going to go forward with them. So,
Okay, but along those lines, the budget could be revised next year during the year if there's surplus and so forth. Okay.
Well,
I
not
mean, I
so-
understand this, but I'm new to the board here, so I want to make sure how it's coming about. How is the 700,000? Who determined that for this purpose tonight?
that was the number the finance committee came up with.
Okay.
And I don't know
Thank
if Joe has any input on that.
No, we came up with that just trying to get an idea, one, how many things we're going to do next year or between now and next year. And where we needed the money the most. And there was an operating budget that you see up there at the top. That's done. We've worked that thing backwards and forwards for that. And it has an increase of 400,000 from last year in the operating. But that salary deal, as it was pointed out, you know what it's like trying to hire people now, and we have to give everybody a raise to keep anybody on the job. So we felt that 700 was a good number.
I'd also like to add with the increase in operating, if anyone goes through all of them, we had it split out between all utilities and now it's just down as utilities. But the cost for, probably people feel it at home, but electricity has gone up quite a bit and that impacts everything. I mean, you'll see majority or when you look at Galt Field, for example, most of that money is spent just for water and electric. And we know from the water company, they were kind enough to share with us to let us know that they expect water is going to go up by 5%. And that's because the water company got hit with a massive increase from the electric company. And instead of them just putting it all on us at one time, they were able to spread it out over several years. So that's why we're not having as painful as an impact on the cost of water going up as they are with the cost of electricity going up on the water. So that's another big, I mean, it's not as huge as wages, but still that's one of those things that it's out of our control from that perspective.
I have a question. What is the current dues? Because I pay mine in cash or check, and bottom line, I don't know exactly what that breaks down to.
Kurt? The current dues that you paid back in May of last year was $3,516. And that would break out to $293 a month. The projection now is $303. Well, it says total payment, $303 is what it,
That sheet up there does not include an extra 216,370. For that sheet has it at 5.5 cents, which
percent?
increased, no, $5.5 dollars increase. It's on that sheet at that, to the 298.
Well, let me ask Susan. Susan, that page we're looking at, the far right column, the variance at 5.3, can you enlighten us on that? Because that's not on my packet.
I didn't mean to confuse you with this. This section down here that's got the $10, if the member chooses to pay monthly and not annually, that's when you get the 303. So perhaps for our purposes, we just want to stick with this line up here. We're proposing in this budget a monthly increase to 298. Last year, or the current year we're in, it's 293. And that's a $5 increase, $5.30, if you want to note this.
So I thought we were gonna go up about $9. So we're only going up $5.
That's the current state of the presentation at this time. If you want to make proposals, we can actually use this spreadsheet for scenario testing. It's up to you.
So what will the 300,000, if Jim,
Yeah, if we went to one.
if we went with Jim's proposal and voted on it, the additional 300 would be approximately how much more per?
Which fund did he propose that in?
If you were to add 300,000 of capital improvement, what would that add to this?
Hold on, I'll give.
She's got it. She's got it here, Joe.
It's not gonna be that much.
Looks like when I bought a car recently, they just kept changing it.
So for $5.20 a month for each homeowner, we would be able to add 300,000 to capital improvement, correct?
Correct.
But I stick with, if we're going to increase it, or we're going to spend an extra 300,000 or contribute an extra 300,000, capital improvement is not my first choice, is actually my third choice. And either repair and replacement and road reserves. Currently, road reserves, we should be funding. Right now, we're proposing $2,050,000. And that's with the hopes that that will win some monies from that lawsuit that's pending. If we didn't have that lawsuit at all in the works, what we should be funding, and just for the roads to be fixed, not for any other restriping of this or restriping of that, would be 2.491 million. So if we're going to put a year instead of the 2,050,000. So the only reason why the finance committee, we were looking at the 2,050,000 is because there is that lawsuit out there. So if we're going to put money elsewhere, it really should go into roads. Otherwise, it's going to sneak up and bite us next year and the following year. Because that 2.491 is for the next, all the way through 2030. So it's not just for the next few years. That's how much we need to put in there.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with either argument. I think they both have merit. And I would like to see maybe over the next month before we approve this budget that we come up to some sort of compromise where we can put a palatable number out there for the members and still protect ourselves from our road reserve issues and the fact that we have a lawsuit and we're confident that it'll be successful. But if anybody's been to court, they understand that you just don't know. So we should prepare for the worst. And if we get the extra money, then that'll help us down the road, because this road project is a multi-year project. It's not just a 2-year thing. So we're going to be spending at least a couple $1 million a year. So if we do get a sizable settlement in the lawsuit, that'll just relieve the burden down the road if we prepare for it now. As far as capital improvement, I ran 2 years ago on the status of the community and the improvements that were going on in the community. And I became a big fan of Eric's when I found out all the work that he was doing and accomplishing and improving our community. And in his 5 years, he's done a remarkable job. And that's because he's had support of the board and he's had capital improvement money to do the work. And so I'd hate to see that cut tight. So I want to do what I can to continue that and build on it and protect it without being ridiculous about costs. Right now, we're talking about the difference of a $5 a month increase and a $10 a month increase. So I don't think it's as significant as we were talking about last year when we were talking about, I think it was a $29 a month increase. So I think we're in a better place now. And I encourage the board to give some deep consideration to some sort of agreement in between the two funds, because I think reasonable thinking is that they both need to be protected.
Yeah, that $10 increase right now would only be for if we go with Jim's proposal of adding 300,000 to the capital improvement fund. Now, if we put 500,000 to the road fund where it really belongs, that's going to jump up to $18 a month increase.
Eric, I have a question. When you're looking at this, when we're looking at this road going forward, whether we win or lose in the lawsuit, what's your burn rate going to be for the next 5 years on this project?
You put money in the fund and I'll spend it.
You're going to, so by giving you more money, how does it help you? Do you go get it done faster, better, or whatever?
Both. We have the lodge exterior patio and event space. The level of funding we're talking about now concerns me that I don't see how we manage to do that project. I'm working on RFPs right now for the inside of the lodge and the patio outside. And I'm afraid we won't have the funds to do that project. And if we don't put more than this amount in there, I'm just being honest, that's what's in my head. So
Well, since
Well,
the
that was my
patio,
concern too.
I was gonna say the patio is from capital improvement.
that's what I'm talking about.
Right.
Oh, you said inside and outside, but
Yeah,
for the
that-
inside, is it exceeding
Well,
250?
the inside we're hopefully going to do because that's reserve funds. So I'm concerned about not being able to do the outside if we don't put enough money into capital improvement.
How much do you, because originally it was budgeted for potentially 250,000 just to do the outside. Do you think it's going to be twice as much?
I hate to make guesses.
I know,
You know,
sorry.
we have 7% inflation. We have supply chain issues. All the markets are all over the map. You know, if anybody's looked at their stock market lately. So anything I throw out there will be a guess. It's going to be more than 250,000.
Okay.
And hopefully less than the other number you threw out.
Fine.
But I would like to see that extra 300,000 go into this fund because I hate to spend time designing a project, putting a project out to bid, and then realize we don't have any way to fund it. So I'm just being honest.
One of the things,
We've done a lot for over the 5 years I've been here. And I think since I've been here, we put $1 million in that fund and it's allowed us to do a lot of really cool things. We're about to open an amazing park. And we wouldn't have had the 2.2 sitting there in order to build this park if we hadn't kept up a level of funding. But I am a homeowner here, and so I have one vote. But I also work here, and I love the progress we've been making, and that's, you know, it's my personal opinion and my professional opinion are kind of the same on this one.
Well, and I appreciate what you said about the 2.2 million and how the funding helped with that. And it helped from also a saving perspective because there was never a capital improvement contribution of 2 million. And there were still a lot of projects going on. So there was a massive saving component and discretion used by the board and certainly by you as you achieved other projects and saved enough money to allow us to move forward with the 2.2 million. So with that, even at 700,000 with the capital improvement, leaving you with $1 million in projects for next year, it might be the same thing that we're going to have to save. There's other great projects that we'd like to do, but we may have to save and bump that into the 23, 24. And maybe for this fiscal year, it just is the remodel, or not the remodel, but the brand new patio that's outside that can help generate revenue, and the pickleball court, since that seems to be a massive item that I know a lot of people will enjoy. And I've only played pickleball once, so that's not a personal thing on that. And then just putting that additional 300,000, if we're going to put in an additional 300,000 anywhere, I go back to the roads because that money, otherwise it's going to bite us. What I'd hate to see is we don't do it. And then all of a sudden we're going to need to fund even more and then less to capital improvement.
next year.
Excuse me, can I say something?
Go ahead.
If you want to raise the dues to $10 a month, raise it by $10 a month. And we've got some money here that we keep the road reserve at $2 million. We can do it. We can put 300,000 more in. If you raise that and you say 2 million in the road reserve that shows up there, we might have to drop 20, 30,000 from the R&R, but that's how close it is. So we could do that. We could make it 1 million and keep the road reserve, like I said, at 2 million. And the repair and replacement will be somewhere around 2,030,000 instead of 50,000.
I appreciate that. For me, I'm not willing to reduce how much should go into repair and replacement and road reserve, because all we're doing is we're going to kick the can one more time. And even though it may be 50,000 there or another 10,000 there, I'd rather see us save. I always think of, as I explained it to people before, repair and replacement, to me, I consider as retirement funds. Road reserves could be any other, college savings fund, but capital improvement is the fun money. That's doing things that we don't need to do, things that we want to do, that will remodeling your kitchen. If it hasn't burned down, you don't need to do it. Will your house look a heck of a lot better? Absolutely. But those are things that we have to save for instead of just doing it all at once. So I wouldn't be one for undercutting any of the other two reserves that are must-haves versus a want to.
I look,
Go ahead. Go ahead, Tim.
so a little bit of construction in my background, but this year and last year, but certainly this year, we've seen construction cost skyrocket. Fuel cost, everything. There's no, in my opinion, things getting cheaper. You know, I love Eric's comment about if you give me more money, I'll spend it. So, you know, and I'm not against that. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. The thing though is if we give more money for road reserves, we can do more money, we can do more roads. That will save us each year that we put in more reserves and use that money now instead of later. We will actually be saving money by funding it more, without a doubt. I have no doubt in my mind that we'll save money giving him an extra 500,000 to put into road reserves and build now with it instead of building a year or 2 or 3 down the road.
So,
Right, you're absolutely right. And
So-
I think that the thing you have to recognize too is whether it's a capital improvement project or roads, the money we spend today is going to be a better deal than if we spend that same amount of money a year or 2 years from now. And,
Right.
and I.
We
I
have
lo-
to
I
do the
love
roads
argument
though.
on both sides.
I
think
totally agree with Renee. We have to do the roads though, but we don't have to build a building or we don't have to remodel. I want to remodel the lodge,
Right.
but I'm just saying, those are wants and desires. This has to be done or this will affect our reserve status and everything else in our community.
Right.
And, you know,
And good point. But what I'd like the board to do is to consider, we're speculating the projects and the costs. But maybe if we could spend a little time and work with Eric and we can't firm up the costs because we won't know the cost of the lodge until we get the bids. We won't know the cost of the roads next year until we get the bids. But we can try to work on those and try to get numbers that are closer. We also can work with Susan to determine what our accounts are projected to be on April 1st, not December 31st. We know what our accounts were on December 31st, but what our accounts will be on April 31st. So we have more accurate information. And if there's another $500,000 in the road reserve account from the monthly payments that are going to go in there, then we take that into consideration. If there's going to be another 300,000 in the CIP fund than we know right now, and more power to us. And we don't have to affect the dues directly, or we can redirect the money to bigger and better things. So,
Correct.
um,
I know without a doubt, and believe me, since coming on this board, super impressed with Eric, what he's done, what he's accomplished, what he's gotten done. This pump track over there, just amazing that he saved us $600,000, got this thing in budget. And I'm impressed with that. But I also know if you give the board, give Eric, and you tell him you can remodel that lodge for $1.2 million, he'll do it for 1.2. If you tell him you only got $250,000 he can spend, or we might have to do part of it this year and part of it next year, if that's his budget, that's all he can do. And so allowing us to just go freely and open the budget up larger, they will spend more. Do we need the $800,000 remodel? Do we need a $300,000 remodel? Do we need a $200,000 remodel? And I just think that's something that we all need to work with. I'm proud of what Eric's done. I truly believe in my heart he can find something that works at a budget that we can work with. But if we give him more money, he's going to spend more money.
well, and the key is us authorizing it. It's not a fault of Eric's. Eric is going to do the best job he can do with what he's given. And it's up to us to direct him with the funds and the projects that we feel are important. Well, I don't want to characterize it as, a negative thing. I mean, I think what we've done is a positive thing over the years, and I want to continue that. Right. So, are you on?
In its time, in its place, instead of just rushing in and spending it all now. That's all. I just want to manage it properly.
And that's why I would like the board to get some time together and scrutinize this with Eric, with Susan, and work with numbers that we really know, not numbers we're speculating. And I think, the community is here for input and information, and we'll hear from them in a moment. But understand that we're not talking about significant increases. We're talking about $5 to $10 a month increase. And that's the hurdle that we're dealing with right now. And because there's 4,800 homes, it equates to hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, we will continue to work on that.
So Joe?
Yes,
So,
go ahead.
So being one of the newbies on the block here, so tonight, are we voting on 700 or a million? We're just discussing. Okay.
This is a workshop,
So
so
I just want to make sure because
there's no action taken tonight.
maybe I missed something, but I just want to make sure.
Right.
I will say this, we were, many of us were elected and ran on if not a direct no dues increase. My position was we should hold back on an increase other than the absolute, let's say, cost of living or, something until we're out of COVID. And I won't get into whether we're out of COVID or not and how and why and when. But, the question is, can people afford it? And so I have 20 people here and I'll ask you for a show of hands. If it went to $1 million, your dues increase is $10. Would that be acceptable to you?
$5 more than what the
$5
original
more. Okay,
proposal.
so
In other words, can you afford an extra $5 a month
if
to do
If it's-
capital improvement of
if it's
$1 million?
850, which is 250, would that be acceptable? I see 4 hands maybe to begin with. Same force, not even that. Okay. So I just wanted to understand, and so thank you for that, and maybe a little bit outside the box, but that's how I roll. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The point that Susan brought up, that I jotted some notes down and on the presentation, she mentioned that payroll costs went up 10%. The lake cost went up 4%. Allied's contract went up 6%. Clearly, COVID cost us a lot of money this year. And just the lake alone is 10% of our annual budget, our operating budget, more than 10%. So those are significant increases. And for this budget, it's going to be less than 4% increase, 3.5% to 4%, 3.5%, I think, roughly. For the operating budget, yes. And even less if you figure the reserve account. But so So it's pretty amazing. And you can see what the Finance Committee did in scrutinizing all the accounts, all the departments, and recognizing areas that they could cut. The managers worked directly with the Finance Committee members, and the results of that, pretty impressive when you consider, 4 of our major factors in our operations the last 12 months or the last year were significant increases. So to look at a 3.5% increase in your dues, I think we ought to recognize the good job that the Finance Committee did.
Can I add one thing to
That's-
that? 'Cause-
Sure.
And thank you to everyone on the finance committee. One of the things that came up, so I wasn't here back in the days, but to all the individuals involved in the lake lease agreement, thank you for the 4% cap. They versus just straight CPI, that helped us out tremendously. If they were able to increase with CPI, that would have been a 7% increase on the lake lease versus capped at 4. So to those individuals out there, if you're listening, thank you. And thanks again, the finance committee.
Just
Another,
real quick too, just
go ahead.
if we do where the road reserve should be at 2.5 million and the 300,000, now we're talking $19.80 a month. So it's not really just $5, $20 a month, but it's not really just $5 more. But $20 is still a bargain for our community. I'm just saying, to be realistic, because that's where it should be, the road reserve should be at.
Okay.
Well, I have no problem adding more to road reserve, but definitely would like to stick to that $1 million. The cost of building is going to go up probably 10, 20%. So why would you want to wait another 2 or 3 years? Makes no sense.
About a year ago, I did a study of the dues increases over the last 25 years. And it was incredible to me that there were 2 5-year periods in that last 25 years where the dues never went up. They went up a few dollars, they went down, they went up and down a couple of years, it was 0. But there were 2 periods like that. And other times they went up dramatically, and yeah, it was just, there was no rhyme or reason, and you look at it on a spreadsheet and it was pretty incredible. When you took 25 years ago what the dues were, you added 3.85% for 25 years. The dues were almost identical to where they were this last year. So 3.85% was the number that worked for that last 25-year period. We're right in that ballpark today. So I feel comfortable that we're in a good place. So does the board have any more questions, or we want to open this up to members?
Let me just say one thing. If we went up $11, that would be an increase of 3.8%. The CPI is over 6%. So, but if we went up 3.8%, you could add $11. Or
Good
make it
point.
11.
Good point. Okay.
Joe?
Yes.
If I could just finish a thought. I appreciate Tim's point of view about let's put a healthy amount of, and Renee's, let's put a healthy amount of money into our road reserve fund, because we know we have $15, $20 million worth of work plus to do on our roads. If we fund that a healthy amount, the sooner we do that, the less it's going to cost us. And my only point that I kind of wanted to make was that the outside lodge project has been in design and been talked about for several years. Same thing applies with that project. So when I'm about to put it out to bid. If we don't have the money to fund it this year and we wait another year, the same thing will apply there. It's going to cost us more money down the road. Yes, there's a saving component, but as we're saving, costs are escalating the same way they would on the road. And it makes more sense to spend the money on the road sooner than later. Same thing applies on that project. And one that's in design, I already have a building permit. I'm putting it out to bid. And I'm of the same mind that the sooner we spend that, the less money it's going to cost us. There are ways to cut things down. If we put that out to bid and we find out all we can do is the big retaining walls, which will add real estate on the lawn out here, and that we save money to do the next phase of it, that's doable. But the sooner we spend that money out there, the less it's going to cost. That's all I'm saying.
See, and for me,
Thank
the
you.
outside patio, well, it's a moneymaker as well. Because I could see a lot of events out there, weddings particularly out there, and women not having to sink down in the grass in their heels like I've done before. So I think that is a great thing to move forward. My thought was with the total of $1 million with 700,000 new capital improvement funds, with the remaining balance of 300,000, assuming we hit contingency on all projects, that we would be able to accomplish the outdoor patio area and the pickleball courts, which are the two main items that we've chatted about and pretty much all agreed on. There are other things I know that FPC and Rec Committee would like to do, but those were the two main projects that I would like to at least see accomplished. And I was hoping it wouldn't cost more than $1 million. Actually, I was hoping for about 800,000. I don't know if that's a possibility. And then for two, the outdoor patio, not the lodge inside, because that's repair and replacement, but the outdoor patio and the pickleball courts. No, I'm just saying, oh, I'm hoping it's under $1 million. No, because that would require a crystal ball. I won't hold you to it.
Well, I think that's where we need to
Yeah, that's-
get together and spend, we got a month and a half before no, we don't. We have a scheduled exec meeting. We might add this to the agenda on February 17th, so we can come up with some clear thinking that and informed numbers. So, Andrea, do we have any speakers tonight?
Yes, I just have one member comment that wants to talk about the operating budget, Ed Dudziak.
Hello, Ed. You got 3 minutes. We're on a tight schedule.
Oh, okay, we have increased the operating budget by $400,000. However, looking back at this year's budget, we are currently running $644,000 under budget. If you annualize that, that's $960,000, which means if you add both of those together, we're effectively talking about $1.4 million increase in spending for this year. That would come to approximately 12% increase in the budget. Do you seriously believe that that is an actual situation? If you look at the salaries last year were 6.5. If you increase it by 7%, that means that you probably are talking about another $50,000 in salary, or 500,000, I'm sorry, $500,000 in salary. That means all of the other expensive increased $900,000. Trust me, the
Well, there-
numbers are
there-
right.
There were considerable cuts.
Wait.
And savings.
Where? I mean, you're
You're on the
400,000.
finance committee.
You're asking for $400,000 more on an annualized basis. And I realize this may not happen. If you break even for the last 5 months or 4 months of this year, effectively, you're saying it's $1 million more for next year. It's still way too high, because I don't believe that, if you take out the salaries, you're talking about $700,000 worth of money, and you're adding it at about $1 million for it, which means you're averaging out 15% increase in all of the other expenses. And I'm not suggesting that we reduce the dues, because I think the other thing the board has been discussing here, which is having a problem with, is the fact of particularly the expenses, whether it comes to the CIP or whether it comes to the operating situation or the roads. Also, you have a situation where you have $300,000 that will be applied somewhere in the budget because of the excess that was first presented in this meeting. I just don't think that we have comprehensively looked at this situation and come up with an adequate result. And that's all I have to say. Anybody have any comments, questions?
I'll be honest with you, I'm not 100% clear on what your point was,
You're
but.
spending $1.4 million more for the operating budget. You
Well,
have
that's-
300 and some.
That's not true.
Huh?
That's not true. The operating budget is 12,800,000 versus,
But you're going to be
last year was
you're going to be $1
$12,300,000
million under budget for this year. You will be.
oh, well.
So it's
okay,
$1.4 million.
Yeah.
I'm not arguing the fact, what I'm saying is I think we should take another look at the operating budget. But as far as I'm concerned, you have a more difficult problem in terms of reserve funds. You're underfunding, to me, you're underfunding the reserves funds based on what you're currently spending, particularly the CIP.
Underfunding,
I think you're underfunding it.
overfunding.
No,
I'm sorry.
you're underfunding the reserves. You need more money. You need more money for roads. We're making more capital improvements. Granted, Eric may be able to cut costs for us and everything else, which I'm sure he's done. But the fact of the matter is, if we want to bring this community up to date as a more modern community that is 50 years old, you're going to see continued expenses, particularly in CIP.
Well,
But that's my opinion. That's all it is.
and I appreciate that. And I have faith that, and I think we all understand that there was significant amount of money found
I
in
would
last
be-
year's budget.
okay. I would be
But
willing
that
to.
money will be addressed
Oh.
on the ballot and it'll be
I
funded
would
back
be,
to the
I would
community.
be willing to make you a $100 wager that you will be at least $500,000 under budget next year.
How much was the bet last year? I don't remember.
Okay, Ed.
Anyway,
Thank you for your time and for your efforts on the committee.
Ed, you're talking about 900,000 to $1 million under budget. Through the first 6 months of this year, we were 7 months. It was working out that it would be about $1.2 million. 1 month later, it's working out to 900 and something. But we don't know where we're going to end up, how much under budget. That's all right. I'm still saying it's not going to, yeah, it will end up, end up less. Okay, all right. Look, we sat there, Ed, we've sat there, we went through this operating budget piece by piece and came up with those numbers, you know. Oh,
Joe, let's let that go. It's good point brought up, but I think the finance committee, hopefully the finance committee has worked through that and okay. Was there anybody else that wanted to speak? Okay.
Yes, Mr. President, we have Billy Furlong. He'd like to speak about the tennis courts and the patio area.
Howdy.
Hello, Billy.
Anyways, thanks you guys for doing what you do. I think it's great. And that even if it was $350 a month, where our dues, look at what we get. I mean, some people only get a gardener, so in a pool in their own locations. But I'm not here to like complain or anything. I've put forth a drawing and I know that you guys spend a lot of money on different drawings for the tennis court area. So we're not here, well, I'm not here to say, hey, we need a building. I'm here to say that we would just like to have the area look nice. And presently it's old picnic tables and block that's been laying there for 6 months and, you know, dirt and it's uneven. And, you know, we had 300 people here this weekend for a tennis tournament. We had professional players and, you know, somewhat embarrassing. So all we're asking is give us a budget and we'll work with it. If it's 50,000, then it's 50,000. If it's 100, whatever. We have general contractors that are part of the organization of the tennis thing, we can get a lot of things done just by using our own subs. I know we probably have to get, bids or whatever, but our bid's gonna knock anybody else's away. So, and I'm one of those general contractors. So just wanted to just voice our opinion about, we just need it to look nicer. We don't have to have a building. We just want to be able to have a place to put shade and not feel like we're going to trip.
Billy, that's great. You mentioned that. It's on my list of things to talk about with the board,
Okay.
of the projects that we are looking forward to in the coming year. And the big problem with that one is the scope of work. As you know, it's gone from this to this and back and forth. So,
We just want you to pick one.
but
Let's just pick something and then go with it.
Right.
And then we can build on it later. We can have more tennis tournaments and raise money, whatever we've got to do. We just want to know what we can and can't do.
I think we all agree that it could use some effort over there and improve the look of the facility over there.
And we
So-
appreciate the fact that the courts were resurfaced. They look amazing,
Mhm.
but just a tiny bit more.
Okay. Well, it's on my list and it'll be part of the discussion that we have.
Awesome.
Can
Thank
I
you.
suggest that rather than a budget workshop, maybe the next board meeting, you and your people come and present maybe in your 3 minutes or whatever, we get emails all the time with, why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? I haven't seen anything. I mean, I've heard things about, I think Joe mentioned this and this, buildings versus, just cleaning up the court. I think you're right in the sense that it could look better. And we did have a USTA event here.
Mhm.
I played tennis 100 years ago, and but bottom line is it should look as good as our other amenities. If it's not, then we have a problem. And if it doesn't cost much, let's look at that. Along those lines, I'll throw an idea, which I think is true of any group, is that if you have people that I don't think I'm on a timer. If you have people who want to donate either time, money, or what have you, there might be some approvals needed. But certainly, I think that I personally would be amenable to considering such. I think it's been done in the past, and frankly, it could be a model for the future. So, without throwing too much on you, but you mentioned a few general contractors and others who might
Yeah,
be
exactly.
interested.
I've given Joe a drawing that I did that was to scale, so we don't have to do the building part of it, or
Yeah.
the straight structure. Just flatten it out.
Okay.
So, all right, thank
Thank
you.
you for that.
Thank you, Billy. Andrea, was there anybody else?
Yes, Mr. President, we have Claude Buchem. Sorry about that. Sorry.
Hello, Claude.
Hi, Al. How you doing? Yep, it's on. Okay, just a couple of points, I think maybe of, how we approach this. First of all, I'd like to mention that what Ed was, verbalizing, it's not a false statement, because what we were measuring this budget is to this coming budget from the current budget. But with such a significant variance, you should be looking at the actual spending, not what we planned. There's, no budget process is perfect. So you should be looking at the actual spending. Now, I want to add a significant caveat to what Ed had said, like the actual spending. Why do we have such a large favorable variance? Is it because of reduced activity this past year or this current year because of COVID? Then I would take that into consideration. But it sounds like, we are going to end up favorable to this year's budget. And that has to be taken into consideration for next year's expenditures. Okay, so I just want to add that to that. The other thing, so I heard that the pump track is coming in under budget, approximately. Do we know
Yeah.
what the estimate is?
I don't think we have that information, but it's certainly within budget at this point.
Oh, okay, I thought I heard that it was coming in under budget.
It was, For all the components of the park, it was way over the amount that the voters approved, which was 2.2. It was closer to 2.6 plus. And what you've heard is that we've value engineered the project and changed the grading on the project, eliminated some retaining walls, changed got rid of our civil engineer, got a new civil engineer, and changed the retaining wall manufacturer. And we've cut enough out of the scope of work to still build the same park, but within the 2.2 that our members approved.
Okay,
So
okay. All right. So the 700,000 that was in for capital improvement projects, now, is that just a number that was thrown in there, or is there specific projects that were slated that make up that 700,000?
Well, there are specific projects that we have planned and projected, but we don't have accurate numbers for it. That's what that's what I'm proposing that the board do, is get together and fine tune those numbers and projections.
Okay, and I understand that's hard in this market.
It is, because the reality is the price is whatever the bids are, and we won't have that luxury at the time we have to decide on the budget.
Okay. Yeah, because under what I thought was going to be, a favorable project for the pump track, I was going to say, can't we, because that money's already allocated, can't we just roll that into the 700,000 without having to touch the assessments? But that's not the case, so.
But what I do have and I'll show you the numbers after, for what's already obligated, we should have $300,000 left in the CIP from this fiscal year that'll roll into next, bringing us to a total of $1 million going into next fiscal year that's not already accounted for. So for the Sierra Park North, I've accounted that full 2.2 million will be spent. If Eric comes in $10,000 under budget, I'll be ecstatic, especially with what he's already done. Any extra dollar would just be amazing because of what's been accomplished so far. And then the other projects that don't get the highlight as much as this one, but the beautiful work that was just completed at Sierra Park, those shade structures and picnic tables.
Yeah.
We're waiting for those final numbers to see if that came in under budget, and it looks like maybe it did a little. But then we have the next project. It's going to be starting up at Indian Beach. These were all approved last year. It's going to be similar to Sierra Park. So I'm accounting for that plus contingency will be spent, and that's how I get to my remaining balance.
So the carry forward, what you're saying, if I hear you correct, is for projects that weren't completed but were scheduled?
Carry forward is for what the board is not obligated to right now.
Well,
So if they're, so.
no, I'm just trying to figure out, how we can, get the CIP, up to, a level that, he can work with.
Well, and that's just as Joe was speaking about earlier, is getting the board to discuss how much are we willing and feel that is appropriate to raise the dues overall to get to a higher number. And then, of course, asking Eric to look into his crystal ball, which we couldn't hold him accountable to since it's ever changing, for what those project costs may be. So, and that's greatest challenge right now.
The last point I have is, I don't agree with I guess the thought that, we should build now because it'll be cheaper than down the road. We've seen in this last year an unprecedented inflation rate, and I believe it's got to come back to a normalcy. So it's got to come down. So like a year, steel was at 75 cents a unit. Now it's like 135 a unit. So under the assumption that it's going to stabilize, would you want to, do a project that's, material intensive, especially ones that have been hit hard, metal, cement, wood? Would you want to, do those projects when, you know, they're at, the prices are at their peak? Or do you want to defer them somewhat until they stabilize? So, but that's, you know.
So the argument on that is, you don't have to spend the money even if it goes up. It just sits there until it comes down. But you may not be able to get that money next time. As these board changes, you're going to get different opinions on this one.
Well, that's,
So
that's politics. I'm talking dollars.
No, I understand that. I understand that, but the simple fact is that we would make wise decisions based upon, you gotta have the money first before you can spend it. So if you have the money there, there's a good deal, you could start then, or you could wait another year, but the money will still be there.
Well, I'm just saying, you know, spend it wisely.
Oh, and I
You know.
agree, and I think that you'll find that for the most part, last 5 years, the money's been spent pretty wisely, and we've got a good return on our investment.
Right, no, and I've got no issue with that, but
No.
in this particular case, where the economy is right now, if it were me, I would say, let's defer, you know, not go to a standstill, you know, but the larger projects that are really material intensive on these hard-hit materials, I think I would defer those till it
Yeah, I
till it
think, I mean,
stabilizes.
the other thing is, I don't think $5 a month is gonna break anybody, but that's my opinion.
Okay.
It's, okay, just one last point. It's not a matter of what's affordable, it's, you know, it's smart spending.
And I wholeheartedly agree.
Nobody's got a crystal ball, though.
But
I mean,
that's the issue.
Nobody knows what's going to happen in the future. Everybody's got different opinions. You can talk to 10 different economists, and they all believe 7 say that's going to go up, 3 say it's going to go down, 3 say it's going to go up, 7 say it's going to go down. But if it goes up, it's definitely going to cost us more. If it goes down, we don't know unless we just sit here and wait and do nothing.
Well, I'm not saying not doing absolutely
It's a
nothing,
difficult,
but-
it's a difficult decision
No, I
to make.
know, we're talking about the unknown, but, you
Exactly.
know, you look at history, you know, you get these blips, you know, the houses are gonna go back down.
How it?
Housing is gonna,
Oh.
sorry, I'm Canadian, house. Okay,
Well, thank you for your thoughts.
all right,
Claude. I
okay.
appreciate it.
Thanks,
I
guys.
can encourage you and the folks here in the room and those at home, you know that the election's coming up and there's going to be 2 open seats on this board, and this is a decision we make every year.
Let it go.
So you, and yes, I am talking to you. And encourage
see.
you to seriously consider putting your time in on the board. And it's very rewarding, but it's got its share of responsibilities. So just know that the election's coming up, and if you want to pull papers, get them in by 3rd of March. So that was
Okay. Thanks.
my little advertisement. So we should have had packets here to hand everybody.
We're going to walk through, they have to take a packet.
Okay, was there anybody else?
No more comments.
Nobody at home?
Nobody at home.
Nobody at home. All right, so any closing comments from the board? I won't press each one of you to speak, but I'll ask if you have anything. Brian?
I just want to thank everyone for coming out. I've been in many organizations, and sometimes there's more people on the board than in the audience for a budget workshop. It's sometimes less stimulating. Tonight, we had some stimulating conversation and very valuable input from you all, and thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
I already said it, but I'll say it again. Thank you so much, Joe, for leading the finance committee again. And even when I was on it, I absolutely love it and look forward to it. And thank you to everyone on the finance committee and all your hard work, and especially your time with all your interviews. And then to the amazing woman that I don't know how she does it, because I could never do it. That would be you, Miss Susan, with all your numbers and the amazing knowledge behind it. But you are incredibly impressive to me. And yeah, you're amazing. So thank you. Please don't ever leave us.
How many people from the finance committee are here tonight? I assume besides.
Almost the entire committee.
I can't assume it was the committee here, but in any event, thank you all.
Yeah, I echo all those words to the committee and the attendees tonight. This may be a record attendance for a budget workshop, so we got to put that down in our record book. And with that, I'll call for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion. Second.
All right. All in favor, say aye. Meeting adjourned.